In my opinion, the Pokémon franchise is one with a lot of opposing views about damn near every game that's been released under its umbrella. Hell, that's why the series' dual release strategy has worked so well for them. But it doesn't just stop there. The quality of almost any game or any region is up for debate. Some people adore Black and White for its phenomenal story and compelling characters, while others degrade it for its overall subpar Pokémon designs and repetition of design ideas. And that division only gets wider as the series reaches its modern works. Some fans love Scarlet and Violet for its great emotional moments and unexpected twists and turns in the plot, while others degrade the game for the terrible performance and underwhelming visual quality. However, one pair of games has often been forgotten by not just the fans, but seemingly Game Freak as well. Pokémon X and Y released in October of 2013 for the 3DS, and it was the main series' first big jump to 3D. Full models and animations for all the over 700 different pocket monsters in a new region named the Kalos region, a landmass heavily inspired by France. Upon its release though, most people tended to see it as a bit of a disappointment. The animations were stiff and lifeless, the story was boring, the characters were a joke. Complaints were lobbed at the game, and even to this day they're kind of seen as the black sheep of the family. The only things from it that I still see getting widely praised are the Mega Evolution gimmick and the XY anime. Now, back when these games were still new, I got Pokémon X for my birthday as a kid, so that was actually the first ever Pokémon game I played. When I did play it, I picked Froakie because I love frogs, Bulbasaur because I love frogs, and after many hours of fun, I beat the game, thoroughly enjoying my time with it. That is, until I unfortunately lost the cartridge on a family trip. So I saved up my money to get Pokémon Y soon afterwards. I played it, picked Froakie because I love frogs, Squirtle because I want to watch the world burn, and after many hours of fun, I beat the game, thoroughly enjoying my time with it. That is, until I lost my cartridge. Again. So I saved up my money and got another copy of Pokémon Y. I picked Froakie because I love Greninja, I picked Squirtle because f*** Charizard, and I found my old cartridge of Y. Then I lost my second copy of Y, so now I just have one again. I'm really bad at keeping track of stuff. So anyway, this is the game that introduced me to one of my favorite franchises of all time, so it always makes me sad to see just how many people dislike the game. That's why I'm here to rectify that. While obviously still being my opinion, here's why Pokémon X and Y is an underrated gem. Now, before I continue on, I would just like to say that this video is not me trying to pitch why these games are the best in the franchise. While these are my favourites, I know that this is mostly due to my nostalgia for them. In fact, I personally think that the best Pokémon games out of the ones I've played are Black and White, but that's neither here nor there. All I'm here to do is to show why these games are not as bad as you might think. So with that out of the way, the rivals. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whoa, what are you saying? The rivals in this game are garbage. And yes, I unfortunately do agree. For the most part. Individually, I do believe that these are very underwhelming characters, and that they don't show much in terms of personality. Even the main rival, Serena or Calum, depending on your character's gender, shows almost no personality traits other than being a supportive friend who likes to battle. However, what they all lack in quality, they make up for in quantity. I know that's a weird thing to say, but hear me out. Yes, they aren't as interesting as some characters in the series, like Arven or Blue or N, but Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor do allow you as a full group to feel like a collection of buddies going on a journey together. With how frequently they show up throughout the storyline, it makes the game feel like you're traveling the country with your friends. An experience that isn't really done often in the series. I think most notably done in Black and White. Sure, they aren't deep, complex characters and are definitely much less interesting as a result, so I can absolutely understand why some people don't like them. But to me, they have a sweet charm to them that I find endearing. Plus, if you do want deep, complex, and interesting characters, you'll find them soon enough. One thing that I cannot get behind, however, is the internet's opinion of Team Flare. The general opinion of Team Flare is that they are just kinda silly and can't be taken seriously ever. I'm sorry, but I just can't agree there. Yes, there are a lot of goofy moments and the admins aren't that deep in terms of character, but their ideals are really interesting to me. They have such a deeply understandable view of the world that makes it all a spectacle to behold what they do with that view. There is a lot more that I want to say about them, but I'll get to that in the story section. None of these characters, however, compared to AZ. The tragic story behind him easily makes him one of the best characters in the entire franchise to me. Again, I will be bringing more up about him later. On top of that, Karina is a pretty interesting character, thanks to her frequent appearances, her connection to Mega Evolution, as well as the small arc surrounding her Lucarios. Malva is another character that stands to mind as being one of my personal favourites in the game. She's a very intimidating presence, and her impact on the story is also fairly engaging, even if she's not that tough to battle against. There is one other character that I'm really invested in, but you'll have to wait to hear about her. Unfortunately, however, even I can agree that the champion Diantha is very underwhelming. She has her moments to appear, very rarely, and that's all she gets. She barely appears in the game, so she doesn't really have much of a personality, which works okay for the rivals, but not so much here, which is a shame and very much makes her less interesting than almost any other Pokemon champion. Oh, and Professor Sycamore is pretty cool too. Not much more to say, I mean he's no Kukui, but he's pretty alright. So in total, while some are very underwhelming, there are other really phenomenal ones there which just don't get the credit they deserve in my opinion. These games, while making their jump to 3D, also added a lot of new features alongside that, some of which became great new additions to the series from here on out. I'll get onto the 3D graphics more later, but for now just know that I think they're quite solid. The newly added Fairy type is honestly a great addition to the series, even if it is a pretty overpowered one now. A lot of old Pokemon were given the type and have been greatly improved because of it, and the new Pokemon that have it are great additions too, my personal favourite being Sylveon. Speaking of new Pokemon, this region does sadly have the fewest new Pokemon added out of any region, but that makes way for some great new designs. Yveltal is a great new legendary, both fossil Pokemon are fantastic in my eyes, Trevenant has a really cool design and a phenomenal shiny, Aegislash is quite cool, Talonflame is one of my favourite Pokemon ever, and Greninja is mine and many other Pokemon fans' favourite Pokemon of all of them. However, on that note, it's definitely worth talking about Mega Evolution, the most likely reason why there isn't as many new Pokemon this generation. The gimmick revolves around evolving a fully evolved Pokemon even further into an ultra-powerful new form using the bond a trainer has with it. I, and many others, absolutely love this gimmick, making some forms of already great Pokemon even better, and turning fairly okay Pokemon into really solid ones. Some of my favourite Mega forms in this game include Mega Houndoom, Alakazam, Pinsir, my favourite one Mega Banette, and even Charizard. On top of that though, one of my favourite things added to this game is custom designing for your characters. Upon starting the game, you have a default look for your character, but you can, over time, get access to new outfits and clothes to wear, and even hair colours and styles. It's a great new addition that makes each adventure feel even more like your own. The only real downside is the gender-specific items available to you, which is a shame. Like, why does the male character have such lackluster hairstyles? And why so few of them? Regardless though, it is a great new feature, and while it does certainly get more expansive later, it adds a lot of fun customization options here. The last part I'm going to mention is the addition specifically on the second screen. There are 3 main sections for it, each giving access to new goodies to play around with. The PSS, or Player Search System, isn't something I'm going to dwell on for too long. It's simply an easier way to battle and trade with other players for the game. Whether that be online, for however long that lasts, to local play. It's a well-designed system that works great, which is why Pokemon changed it in the immediate next generation. Because the Pokemon Company makes all the right decisions. Next is Pokemon Me. This is a cute feature that allows you to play games with, pet, and feed your Pokemon Pokepuffs. I love this addition, it's a fun way to bond with your Pokemon, and it's very adorable. Definitely a worthwhile feature, even if not a lot was added with it. Finally is Super Training. This is a simple but fun way to do some worthwhile EV training to make your Pokemon stats better for competitive play. The majority is played by simple minigames where you hit targets with footballs. Yes, I did not misspeak. Into goals on the giant balloon Pokemon using the touchscreen. It's a simple yet surprisingly fun game. The other half of Super Training consists of all your Pokemon in your party, alongside a meter for how your stat improvements are being divvied up. It's a convenient addition that makes training Pokemon much easier. Oh, and you can punch the punching bags too. Kinda boring, but it's helpful. So yeah, this game added a lot of great new features which makes them feel quite fresh and user-friendly, even compared to some of the newer games. Now, despite the game being released over 10 years ago on a 3DS, it actually looks really solid. I do need to say that I do not think that visual quality equates to a good game overall, but a good art style vastly improves any game. And while this one certainly doesn't have a massively imaginative art style, I still think it's something that doesn't get the credit it deserves. Since this was the main franchise's big jump to 3D, they had to transfer over their art style shown off in previous games with its 2D sprites into 3D. This is where the look for the chibi overworlds that have come to plague the series for several games came from. And regardless of my opinion on those later incarnations, I think it looks really good here. The well-designed chibi style for the overworld characters work really well with the very pretty colours and modelled world setup. I mean, look at Snowbell. Look at Laver. They're so pretty, I want to live there. Seriously, I know I'm showing footage of an upscaled version of the game, but look at how pretty this game is. Why does this look on par with or better than some of the Pokemon games on Switch? It kind of reminds me of Octopath Traveler in its almost miniature looking world, just in 3D. which in turn also reminds me a lot of the DS era Pokemon games, so really big wins all around. I just think that the overworld looks really cute and makes the game feel all the more endearing. Entering the battlefield, however, I admit is more of a mixed bag, but not as mixed as some might say. Starting off, I love how when dealing with important characters in battle, you can see cool new animations for your character as well as your opponent. It sets the stage very well for the stakes of the fight. Unfortunately, even I can agree that the looks of the Pokemon battle themselves aren't that great. A lot of the Pokemon don't feel dynamic since their poses don't look battle ready. Some do, but that's not a great sign overall. It feels pretty static and not very tense at all. It worked well for some of the 2D games since there were static and battle ready poses that look really great. These can just look a bit lifeless is all. I do, however, think that the attack animations look really solid. They feel a lot more vibrant, probably because of the great new camera angles shown to us. It makes each attack feel a lot more powerful than most of the modern games. It's something that doesn't get a lot of praise from what I've seen. The battles are still a bit dull, but the attack animations make it worth something in my eyes. The music, on the other hand, is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best soundtracks for any Pokemon game ever, I might dare say. I won't stay on this point for too long as I don't want this video to just be music, but really I could go on for ages. First of all, look, or rather listen, to some of the town and city music tracks, like the Snowbell City theme, and the Lumio City theme. They give off such a wondrous sense of happiness and jolliness. Their music is very whimsical and fits in with their settings amazingly. Alongside that, this game has some incredible battle tracks. The main trainer battle theme is a great example. This track is very upbeat and energetic. It gives a great sense of liveliness to each fight. There are several others which are great and are ones that you have most likely been listening to throughout this video already. This list is too great to name them all, but the big ones I can remember off the top of my head include Team Flare's theme, Gym Leader theme, Champion theme, Vanderville Town's theme, AZ's theme, Legendary Pokemon theme, Pokeball Factory theme, and the biggest one in my opinion is Friends Forever. This scene always gets me so emotional each time, in large part thanks to the music. It gets me so much more invested in the simple story of the friends you're traveling with. Call me a baby all you want. I don't care. But speaking of story... Now, this is the part where I'm going to be getting into story spoiler territory for these next two parts. So go to this time to skip that over if you care at all. I mean, you probably know it already, or you probably don't care, but better safe than sorry. Now, the story of this game is where it tends to lose a lot of people. As you should be picking up on by now, I very much disagree. The main issue I have with the plot is that it doesn't really do anything of note for a good amount of the story. We see Lysander pretty early on having a debate about the state of the world with Diantha, which is admittedly a great scene and gives Diantha some form of personality. Basically all she gets, but still. Then following that, we just see Team Flare messing stuff up for seemingly no reason. It's not until the 4th gym where we actually get to see them do anything substantial. However, from there on out we start seeing them a lot more, doing things in preparation for something they hint at slowly over time. After defeating Olympia and getting the 7th gym badge is where the plot kicks into maximum overdrive, where we get a message from Lysander announcing to the country that he plans to wipe the slate clean and restart the world with Team Flare and the Chosen Ones as the only survivors. A plot twist that can absolutely be seen coming a mile away, but I don't think it's that bad here. On the contrary, it actually gives us the chance to see some hints to his evil plans earlier on if you're picking up on the hints. Going down to a secret bunker Lysander labs to try to stop him, we bump into a giant man named AZ that we've actually seen occasionally before muttering to himself throughout the game. He then tells us the story behind a device called the Ultimate Weapon, describing his tale of grief at the loss of his Pokemon Floette to a war 3,000 years ago, and in his sadness built a machine to revive his Floette, and then in his rage used it to destroy every Pokemon on both sides of the war, their bodies one day turning into the stones used in Mega Evolution. In the process, he gave himself and his Pokemon eternal life. But once Floette found out what he had done, it left his side. It's a tragic and gut-wrenching story showing what awful things he did and how much he's changed and regrets his past actions. Seriously, why is this not one of the best characters in Pokemon history? Back to the present, Lysander and his equally insane scientist Zerosic activate the ultimate weapon with the power of the box art legendary you've chosen to wipe the slate clean. While it's unclear what motivated Zerosic, Lysander's motivations are purely for what he sees as the greater good. He sees that humanity is on the path to implosion, taking from each other and fighting each other for selfish reasons, and that people will end up using Pokemon as nothing but tools. So it is best for everyone that they are spared that miserable life by being destroyed now. It's a motivation that fully makes sense, however, the way he plans to deal with it is utterly insane. But what makes it interesting to me is that he knows it's insane. He knows that the way he thinks is bad, but he just can't see another way around it. To him, it's the lesser of two evils. On the surface, this might just seem like they're redoing Diamond and Pearl's story again, but all I can see is the similarities in terms of actions, not character or motivation. Yes, they're trying to destroy everything but themselves and their group so that the world can start anew, but Cyrus is much more standard evil, where he just wants to rule over the world he's trying to create. Not saying that kind of characterization is bad, not at all. I'm just saying that Lysander's motivation is very different, as he wants to bring peace to the world in whatever twisted way he can. On top of that, Lysander's a much more caring individual. He actually feels bad about a lot of the stuff he's doing, which makes him a much more interesting character to me than Cyrus, who to me just works as an intimidating presence and that's about it. But yeah, after beating Lysander, saving the world and catching the legendary Pokemon, he gives out one last shot with whatever energy is left in the weapon and dies in his own explosion. After that, you get back to your adventure, beat the Elite Four and a woman of unknown name who has a Mega Gardevoir, and you finally become the champion. Following the ceremony, AZ challenges you to a Pokemon battle, and after the fight, finally finds the will to keep going because of it, finally finding his love for Pokemon that he lost all those years ago. And upon this moment, his Floette returns to him. AZ falls to his knees and begins to cry tears of joy, as the friend he drove away because of his terrible actions has finally come back to him. Anyway, that's the gist of it. Hopefully you can see why I love this story so much. It's got some great emotional beats, an interesting villain, and it still continues to be upbeat and charming as you travel around with your friends. However, that's not all this game has to offer, as there's still several amazing things to come. The post-game of X and Y are once again common points of ridicule that these games often get. While I agree that there isn't a massive amount of things to do, the things available more than suffice, and one part in particular is truly exceptional. After defeating the Pokemon League, you have access to a new area of Kalos named Cloud City. This place has a few extra goodies available to you, including a final rival battle where they have a Mega Absol. Nothing amazing in that regard, but nothing bad either. On top of that, it also has two buildings called the Friend Safari and the Battle Mason. The Friend Safari is pretty neat as it gives access to other Pokemon outside of the regional Pokédex, as long as you have friends on your 3DS. A neat bonus, but it's a shame it's locked behind such a specific feature. The Battle Mason, on the other hand, is pretty much another battle facility like some of the older games had. Just a fun place to battle in different formats in increasingly difficult fights, which by beating can also get you some fun rewards. I haven't used it a ton, but it's certainly a nice addition. The post-game also has some other fun things to do, like getting another starter Pokemon from Shauna, finding one of the Kanto legendary birds flying around Kalos, and finding and catching Mewtwo in the Pokemon Village. Those are neat bonuses, but they aren't anything spectacular. However, there is one final post-game event that is so great that I'm shocked people don't talk about it more. The Looker post-game story can be activated after defeating the rival in Cloud City and talking to Professor Sycamore in Anastar, at which point the next time you go to Lumio City, you'll get a message from Looker himself, which will begin his post-game side missions. These revolve around the Detective Looker, whom you may be familiar with from his appearance in the Sinnoh and Unova games. Here you start off by doing tasks for him to promote yourself to the rank of being his assistant, until you find a homeless girl named Emma and an Esper named Mimi, a Pokemon that is terrified of adults and only really trusts Emma. After their mission, they come to stay at the detective agency for a while. However, after a run-in with some criminals, Emma starts to doubt her worth to the group, so she starts to look for a part-time job so she can feel a bit more useful. Soon after that, Looker hears word of a Pokemon thief around Lumio City, to which you are tasked with catching. However, upon defeating her in combat, she reveals herself to be someone in a technological disguise suit who seems to have superhuman strength and dexterity. She immediately knocks Looker to the ground, injuring him, just as Mimi the Esper appears and takes a strong liking to the thief. It's at this point that Looker realizes that Emma is the culprit due to Mimi's fear of new people. A really devastating reveal that, since this was my first time experiencing for this video, I was completely taken aback by. However, after taking Looker to the hospital, Emma gives us a message, informing us that she wants to see us. We immediately inform her of Looker's injury and she is very confused, but after the conversation she leaves to get back to her job. Soon afterwards, we are informed that the true mastermind behind these robberies and the creation of the Emma disguise suit is Zorosic, the lead scientist behind Team Flare. We are told this by Malva, an ex-Team Flare member and a member of the Elite Four. See, I told you she was interesting. So upon finding this out and heading to Lysander Labs again, we encounter Zorosic and Emma. We find out that she is actually sleeping while using the suit under the control of Zorosic, so therefore she is unaware of the crimes that she is committing. After a long battle against her, we are finally able to snap her out of it after Zorosic comes to his senses. He and Luca have a talk soon after where he admits his guilt and defends Emma's innocence. Upon this discovery, Luca plans to head off to another region, leaving the agency to Emma's care. She doesn't want to leave Luca's side at first, but eventually decides to stay to help the people of Kalos with the new Pokémon Zorosic has given her. Upon his departure, she says one final goodbye to the man who changed her life for the better. The Luca story is easily one of the best parts of the game, having some of the most emotional moments in the entire Pokémon franchise. It really deserves so much more credit than it gets, and I feel really stupid for not playing this until now. The story is absolutely amazing, and it's basically the sole reason as to why I completely disagree with the common consensus that the post-game of X and Y is underwhelming, because to me, it isn't. So that's my think piece on a game that honestly changed my childhood completely. Hopefully these points allowed you to at least think of the game in a better light, and if they didn't, that's fine. Opinions exist for a reason, and I'm just happy to share mine with you. And if you're angry with mine because you disagree, then I think it's past your bedtime. As I said before, as much as I love these games, I can definitely see a lot of the flaws with them in hindsight. Clearly, there are a lot of them. The games are definitely really easy, there isn't a lot of characters that go through interesting arcs, and the battles can look very lifeless, but there's so many excellent new features and emotional story beats that make me really care for these games. I don't think I will ever stop loving them. Whew, right, okay. Sorry if the audio quality is going to be a bit worse here. I'm just recording this now since the announcement came out. But this is absolutely perfect timing. The announcement of the Legends game of Kalos. I am very excited for that. I'm very surprised that Unova wasn't the first one to be picked, but honestly I don't even mind. If they're going straight to Kalos, that's fine by me. Yeah, I am very excited to see how this comes out. Hopefully Game Freak does a good job with it. Hopefully people will come around to X and Y more a bit now. We'll see. Thank you for listening to my rant. Consider subscribing if you want to hear about more games, movies, and TV shows, and I wish you all a great day. Bye.